This is Rob Tebbutt for ID Boxing. Delighted to be joined by Mr. Gerry Saldivar. We're here in, sunny Acapulco, but we found a nice bit of shade for this interview. Gerry, how are you?
It's all good. Thank you very much for inviting me.
You're very welcome. We've been speaking at points throughout this week, and we've, in typical ID Boxing fashion, we've managed to squeeze this in about an hour before we leave for the airport, so I'm glad we've been able to get this time in. How have you found your week here in Acapulco at the WBC Convention?
So very productive and very insightful from World Boxing Council, and just motivated to keep on going with the Cuban Olympic boxers.
Now, people who are watching this may not be familiar with yourself.
Yep.
Of course, you are here representing not only some fighters or Cuban fighters, but some of the very best Cuban fighters in the world. Why don't you give people just a bit of an insight into who you are, what you're here doing, and how you found your pathway into boxing?
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm representing Cuba, and when I'm talking Cuba is after 60 years, Cuba is coming back to professional boxing and allowed by the government of Cuba. So I'm representing them. I'm from Mexico. My company is called Golden Ring. It's a Mexican company. And yes, we're very excited to bring the best fighter, the blue chips of boxing, Olympic boxing. They have won everything in the Olympic boxing style tournament. So and now they're getting their way into professional boxing.
Just give us a little bit of an insight, if you can, into how that's come to pass. I mean, we're all boxing fans. Everybody watching this will know the Cuban national teams dominate the amateur system on the world level, whether it's the Worlds, the Pan American Games, the Olympics.
Yeah.
You always see at least one Cuban with a medal around their neck come the end of the week. More often than not, it's quite a lot more than those. You've mentioned there, after 60 years, Cuban fighters are now going to be competing professionally again. Tell us about how that came to fruition and your role within Cuban boxing now.
Okay, so I started working with AIBA for the World Series of Boxing 2010, and I was in charge of the Mexican franchise. It was called Mexico Guerreros, right? And then I move on and start as the competition, the tournament, the World Series of Boxing was growing, and more countries trying to get in. One of them was Cuba. So I pretty much serve as consultant for the Cuba team to they get into the World Series of Boxing to pretty much tell them how the production, how is the tournament, how is everything. So in that, I think at that time we started a relation. So it was built in trust and boxing at the end of the day. So I know these guys from 2010, all the boxers. We've been together. We did the first exhibition bout from World Series of Boxing. The first time the Cuban boxer fought without headgear and vest. So that was in Mexico City. So that was kind of a test, and they approved. The authority liked it, and then they got into the World Series of Boxing. And out of 5 times the Cuban team compete, they won 3, and the other 2 were controversial. So, and against the Kazakhstan team. A very strong team as well, and that was semi-pro style of boxing, but they were like 10-9 point system and 5 rounds with a headgear, with a vest, just pretty much pro, right? So these guys have all this great experience, and they fought. In that tournament, you didn't choose your opponent. You had just to fight whatever you had in front of you, right? And then. They were doing a training camp after Olympic game. For previous to Tokyo, they were doing a training camp, altitude training camp in Mexico, in Aguascalientes. And from that, something came up after the COVID and the bubble and all that kind of stuff. They couldn't prepare. I mean, they couldn't have sparrings or against any other teams because there was nobody there, right? So, and we said, what if we do an exhibition bout against pro boxers, because that style suit them previous to the Olympic Games. And the Cuban team agreed, the federation, and said we started. The World Boxing Council was there, Mauricio Suleiman was there, and from that on they saw that there was, why not? No? Cuba saw that the World Boxing Council have been making a lot of improvements to the rules that the professional boxing Cuba knew 60 years ago is not the same as it is now. Before it was more kind of bloody, 15 rounds, all that kind of stuff. And they saw the professional boxing is now more human. They're taking care of the boxer. It's everything about the boxer, the coach, anti-doping, all that kind of stuff. So that was the first test, and it was approved. It was just a matter of time, you know. It was just a matter of time that they got into it. Last May 20, they make their debut. I believe it's going to be a historical night. It will never repeat again, because in the same night there was three two-time Olympic champions making his pro debut, and the other one, Lázaro Álvarez, is also 3 times bronze medalist. So in one night, 4 Olympic medalists making their debut. And we started thinking that they needed kind to adapt from World Series of Boxing or Olympic boxing to professional. And we have fought already 16 bouts, professional bouts with different boxers, Cuban boxers, and we have 16-0 with 13 knockouts. So they adapt very good, very quickly, and they're using the professional bandage and Cleto Reyes gloves, and they're just happy with it.
When the announcement came, I mean, I was very excited when we heard the news that Cuban fighters would be able to box professionally.
Yeah.
As I think a lot of boxing fans were to hear that news. Explain to me, if you can. So it's the Cuban fighters are obviously still based in Cuba. Is it different to kind of a conventional professional? Is it? Explain kind of the way it's put together, because I think I was thinking, it means Julio La Cruz is going to end up kind of fighting on a top rank card or end up fighting on a golden boy card, or but it's not quite that. How is it put together? What does it look like at this moment?
Pretty much it's a process. We believe in that. We kind of baby steps, but it hasn't been baby steps. The pro debut was 6 rounds, so, and his second bout was 8 rounds. So, but pretty much what is they train, they live in Cuba, which is good because they have all the training system from all the boxing system from Cuba, which is one of the best in the world. Sorry. So they live, train Cuba. They travel a lot. They travel for the professional bouts. They come back again to Cuba. They still have a priority, the Olympic umbrella, tournaments on the Olympic umbrella, Olympic Games, World Championship, Pan American Games, Central American Games, over the professional bouts. But we also agree something, that the purse for the boxer is 80% is going directly to the boxer, 15% is going to the coach, and 5% is distributed with doctors and medical. So it's a good thing. At the end of the day, it's a good thing. But we also are thinking and open to work with other promotional companies, because we know our limits and we know the quality of these guys, and what we are offering is a boxer, complete boxer, which has been proved already in the Olympics, and now it's already made 2 or 3 steps in professional boxing. They adapt, and one big thing, these guys are in one piece, and they come back. They can come back to Cuba, and they make some money. They come back to Cuba. They live with the families, all that kind of stuff, and they're still training with the team, and still representing their flag, their countries. So it's a win-win situation, and we're very happy with the professional rankings that we have been good, a good reception. And the only thing we want is to compete. It's just boxing. For us, it's a sport, and the kids deserve that, because that door was closed for 60 years, and now it's open. And just let them speak on the ring. That's it.
We've seen in recent years Guillermo Rigondeaux, Erislandy Lara, Odlanier Solis.
Yeah.
The list goes on of fighters who have left Cuba. They've defected. Mm-hmm. Was this a response to defections to try and limit that, to try and prevent that from happening? Was this the idea behind this?
Those are personal reasons, and there's nothing to do with me or with these guys trying to make their pro debut. It was a natural process. It just have to be. They just have to be part of it. There's a new kid in town, the Cuban boxers, and professional ranking. That should be good for boxing at the end of the day, right? So, but no, it has nothing to do with it.
You mentioned there Cuban fighters now in the WBC rankings. I was in the rankings event the other day. A certain Julio César La Cruz. If you know your amateur boxing, you'll know all about El Sombre, the Shadow. One of the best amateur boxers in history. 5-time world champion, 2-weight Olympic gold medalist. Just recently, last year, of course, the delay due to Tokyo, won the gold medal against Muslim Ghazi Magomedov in a wonderful performance, arguably the best performance of the entire Olympic Games. For people who have not seen Julio La Cruz, what can they expect to see of Julio La Cruz going into the professional ranks?
Oh, Julio is just an amazing fighter, like you said, and the people can expect good boxing, quality boxing. You know, placement, everything. They just good boxing. I don't know what to say, but yeah.
He's now ranked with the WBC. Mauricio said it was the first time in the history of the WBC that a Cuban fighter has been ranked by the WBC while still residing in Cuba. So history made here this week at the WBC Convention.
Yeah, we have a proposal for six boxers. Julio César La Cruz, like you said, in 200 pounds. Arlen Lopez, which is a terrific boxer as well, 175. The great prospect of Cuba, which is Joel Feliciano, the 160. That guy is just amazing and very young, talented. But we also have another 2-time Olympic champion, Ronel Iglesias, which has really mindset. His mindset is on professional boxing now, and he's really good at it. He's a hard worker, and wow. And what can I say about Lázaro Alvarez? And that guy had the chance to compete in the Olympics or the Olympic style boxing against Teofimo Lopez, Conceição, Oscar Valdez, all of these guys, and with good results for Lázaro. So they're excited to jump in, right? And Josvani Beitia, who I believe in the World Championship, he defeated Naoya Inoue, so twice. So these guys, now they're here. So we're really excited.
You've listed off those names there, and we've kind of spoken about La Cruz, Arlen Lopez, Ronel Iglesias. In recent years in particular, I mean, the standout example of probably the last decade of a highly successful amateur moving quickly is Vasily Lomachenko, who's, of course, a 2-time Olympic gold medalist and, one of the most established amateurs of all time. The fact that the Cuban fighters have gone in 6-rounders, and it seems to me like the impetus will be for them, particularly somebody like La Cruz, who is, he's still a world-class talent, but he's not 25 years old anymore. Will the ambition be to push those guys quickly through the professional ranks?
Definitely. That's the idea. The problem we had before, they've been considered to be ranked, is like the ranking was very low because they just have 2-0, right? So it was very difficult to find opponents for them because nobody didn't want to fight them. Right? You say, okay, they're gonna beat me. I'm gonna look bad on television, and on top of that, they're not ranked, so there was no benefit for the opponent, and they knew what Julio La Cruz is, right? And that's the other thing. We have been partnered with all the bouts have been broadcasted by ESPN Knockout, so the guys are there. They can watch them now, right? So everybody knew them, and the guys who didn't, now they know them, and it was really difficult to find opponents for them.
That was going to be my next question. I mean, it's difficult to match, elite level prospects regardless of who they are. But you hear kind of Cuban gold medal, world champion, and you can see fighters that are already running for the hills. Is that going to be the most difficult part of all of this? Trying to find the right opponents, having to have promoters who are willing to risk their talents against these elite level amateurs, where not only, as you've mentioned there, not only are they going to potentially lose, but there's a good chance that they're not going to look very good in doing it. Is that going to be the most difficult part of this whole process?
So far it has been, and I don't think that will change. But I also strongly believe that another promotional companies or television, we would like to watch them. Because that's quality boxing, that you guarantee that on television, on TV, right? So I believe now with the rankings could change a little bit in our favor.
Could we see Cuban fighters co-promoted with Top Rank, with Matchroom, with all of these other promotional companies? And then I would think that would potentially lead to easier opportunities or easier pathways to titles if they were to, I mean, obviously with all due respect, to partner with a major US promoter with a major US broadcast deal?
Yeah, we're open. We're open to talk, to negotiate, to explore that opportunity. Of course, why not? And like I said, they're ready. They're ready. That process it's already passed. They're ready now for it in any regards.
Over the years, particularly in Cuban boxing, I mean, I'm always drawn to the quote from George Foreman, where George Foreman says, the better boxing is like jazz. The better it is, the less people appreciate it.
Right.
And sometimes you've seen in the past with Guillermo Rigondeaux, just because he doesn't go in for 100 punches around, sometimes people will say he's boring. I mean, for me, personally, I love the Cuban style.
Yeah.
I think it's slick, it's intelligent, it's what I like to watch. But is there now more of a, not pressure, but more of a direction for more exciting fighters? And now they're in the professional games, having the Reyes gloves on and going there and delivering these knockouts and getting people talking and interested in Cuban boxing?
Yeah, definitely. And even our boxers know that. They've heard that. They also have this stigma that they don't punch, that they don't have power, that they're boring, and they just have proven it wrong. 16 bouts, 14 KOs. So what else? What is else? Is there anything else to prove? No, these guys are excited, motivated, and they know about all this, right?
We've listed off all of these great Cuban names who are turning professional. And one of the names I think is probably the standout omission from that is Andy Cruz.
Yeah.
Andy Cruz is again, if you know your amateur boxing, he is one of the best amateur fighters of his generation for sure. Recently won a gold medal. Keyshawn Davis, who is now with Top Rank, he's getting a lot of hype. He's a big prospect. Andy Cruz is, beating him several times in the amateurs. What's the status currently of Andy Cruz? I remember reading, I think fairly recently, that there was an attempt for him to defect from Cuba. What's his current status?
Well, he's a great boxer, but he's also a great human being. He's really, really nice guy. What I knew is that he was pretty much, he didn't attend the big tournaments in Cuba. He was suspended because some disciplinary rules or something. So he was pretty much left out from the Cuban boxing system. And then he was released by the Cuban Boxing Federation. They gave him the release, he got his passport, natural passport, his ordinary passport. And I know he's in, I think, Dominican Republic. And he's just ready to jump into professional boxing as well, and that's good for him, right?
So he will be turning professional, as far as your knowledge?
I believe so. He should, right? That's what everybody's expecting.
And will that be with you, or will that be with somebody else?
No, I think we'll be with somebody else, yeah. I'm getting my eyes and my energy on these 6 boxers that I mentioned, which are same quality, right?
I think I also remember reading something about a potential fallout or a dispute between him and, as we mentioned, Julio César La Cruz. What can you tell me about that?
That was something that's something that should be kept on the dressing rooms, in the locker rooms. That was between them, and there was nothing there. Just like, I would say, fake news, something. It was just nothing. These guys live together in the same place. It's boxing. In the gym, they go for breakfast and everything together pretty much all time of the year, and it's like a family. And sometimes in family you argue with somebody else, but nothing, not about blood, just to say so.
Now, you're not Cuban, but you're probably as good as after working with these fighters for all of this period of time. What can you tell me about? One of my dreams has always been to go to Cuba and shoot a documentary with Cuban fighters and understand just what boxing means to Cuba.
Yeah.
What can you tell me about that?
So, when I said now Cuba's back, they're back open to professional boxing, it's like, but they also open the doors to, professional boxers who want to do training camps in Cuba. They now will welcome to go there and do the training camps. You could imagine they will have sparring all days. Boxers from all over the world, they just can come to Cuba and do training camps. That would be awesome as well for them, right? And yeah.
What does boxing mean to Cuba? How important is it to the people of Cuba?
It's in their blood. I think with baseball and boxing, they're the national sports, and national heroes like Teofilo Stevenson, Felix Savon, Kinderla, and all these guys are like role models for them. And it's just there. It's everywhere you go. You look on the corner in Havana streets or Camagüey or everywhere, and you see people like with the boxing trunks, right? And Cuba has a system in boxing, which is, for instance, in Mexico, we have a lot of talent. We have good facilities, but sometimes we're lacking of that link between the athlete and the facility, the sport, right? And over there, the coaches are professional. They're science. They study there, and the multidisciplinary team that works with the Cuban team is amazing. They always have doctors, psychologists, physiologists, nutrition, going with the team. I think that's one of the success of Cuba, and that's great.
You've mentioned Cuban trainers and Cuban coaches. Before I let you go, appreciate your time here, and we've got to catch a flight.
Yeah, me too.
The great Ismael Salas, somebody who I have come into contact with in America, in the UK, and I know he's done some training out in Thailand, and he's a legendary figure in boxing. Tell me about Ismael Salas and kind of his impact on Cuban boxing. You mentioned Felix Savon. He trained Felix Savon, and he's worked with so many great fighters over the years and given so much to the Cuban setup.
Personally, I don't have the honor to meet him, to know him. But I can tell you about, it's not only him, there's many other, a lot of coaches. The system creates that type of quality in coaching and boxers. The head coach of a national team now, Rolando Aceval, in Tokyo Olympic Games, there were 8 available gold medals. The Cuban team went with 7 boxers, and they brought 4 medals and 1 bronze. So there's a big team working, and has been working since many time, and is still working now, and I think they're going to still be working in the future.
Is that going to be difficult for the fighters to go between? I mean, everybody always talks about going from amateur to professional. It's surely going to be very difficult to go amateur to professional to amateur to professional. Is that going to be difficult for the fighters?
I don't think so. They have done it with the World Series of Boxing, 5 rounds to 3 rounds, and the system, the training system, they do ATR, I think it's a training system. They're very familiar, and they have proven already for 5 years with the World Series of Boxing, and now going after 2 or 3, I think Lázaro and Roniel, they're fighting now in the Netherlands in kind of Olympic style boxing. And they're adapted, right? They're experienced boxers. They know what they want. They know how to do it and everything. So I don't think there's going to be any issue.
Will it potentially be a bit different when they get to 10 rounds and championship bouts of 12 rounds? Will that make it a little bit more different and a little bit more difficult, do you think?
Well, we'll have to see. So far, so good. So I believe it's going to be the same.
Okay, Gerry. Well, before I let you go, I appreciate your time. What have you got? What have you got coming up? When's the next show? How are we going to watch it? What's going on with these great Cuban fighters, and where can we watch them next?
Yeah, we have been partnering with Boxstar promotion as well. So some of our boxers are taking part in their events with Chino Maidana promotion as well. And we did something with Quadrilatero back in Colombia. And but the next one to come into the ring is going to be Josvani Beitia for his debut. And we are thinking to make his debut at 8 rounds, maybe at the end of this month or beginnings of December. Okay,
well, we're in touch now, so you can have to let me know whenever one of these great fighters are out and anything that you've got coming up.
Sure, and I appreciated your time and to invite me.
No problem at all. Gerry Saldivar, thank you very much for speaking to ID Boxing, and wish you all the best in the future.
The same for you guys. Thank you very much.